episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni. I'm all sorts of different things, but mainly looking at natural healing physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And also, this is what this podcast, Healing Conversation, is all about. Let me introduce you to today's guest. We have Gabriel Cousens in the studio. Gabriel, it's wonderful to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be talking with you.
Amazing. So I understand we're going to do something before we start this interview.
Well, my view of healing is holistic, as a holistic medical doctor physician. And I find dance tends to open the heart and also connect the heart and the mind into a unity. So I like to start with like a few minutes of dance. I'm going to do a prayer first, which is merging the heart and mind, because that's part of healing too. So I'll share this prayer with you. Hashem Yikud Kudusha Brihu Ushinate Bi'ilu Urimu Ulio Biaktad Biyushem Biyu UK Babavke Biyudam Ko Israel Kolam. Amen. And now I'm going to invite everyone to dance with me for about 3 minutes. And Einav will time us. She'll wave at me or do something. So let's dance. Hold on. But I'm really encouraging everybody to dance because that really gets the energy moving.
Who the hell am I to speak these words, to be a bit different in the face of obscurity? In the world I see malicious and vicious traditions masquerade around as the right way to be. It seems cultures got pulled with the people, fear in the shadows and nets built in steeples. So easy to fall into that hole if it's how we were born. You say it's just the things that I have been taught. It's just the way that I was brought up. It's just the way that my people live. No other way but to give in. You've been speaking to me like different is dangerous. Like the world's got no space for us, but our timing is perfect. The new world is worth it. We're waking up. Who the hell am I to say I am God? And God is us, and we are not lost. Who the hell am I to be the whistleblower, to stand for a different culture, a culture of love? Who the hell am I to be loud and free, to show up as I am, determined to be dismantling the pain we bring, the stories and service of our sufferings, purpose in society? I'll give you a key. The answer is we look in the mirror where the source of our own suffering. You want the world to change and rearrange, to be in line with the love you bring, with the light you see, with the light you see, set your own heart free. Oh, who the hell are you to say you are God? That God is us, and we are not lost. Who the hell are you to be the whistleblower, to stand for a different culture, a culture of love, a culture of love? I'm giving up resistance, my heart is insistent. Offer my soul to you in every instant. Authentic calling to my one true mission, to love the world through my music and vision. I'm all in, ready to fall in line with this love divine, with this world of mine. Together we'll rise and bring the shadows right to a place of light. I offer my life and I need you to live. And I need you to know.
Okay, I was 3 minutes up.
Very good.
Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Very good.
Thank you. I didn't dance, but I already feel my connection is stronger.
Yeah, the beauty of dancing is it really opens up the heart and it actually integrates the heart and mind. It also helps your coordination. It kind of again activates your balance, particularly with age. Balance is a really important issue. So all these things start to get reintegrated with dancing. So I encourage the people I'm working with to get into dancing, and I'll dance with people too, obviously. So
Nice. And
that's a little different way of thinking, but it gets the therapist out of the chair, so to speak. So
well, it's definitely unusual and a lovely way to start the interview. So thank you for that, and definitely enjoyed that. But yes, so here we are. Let's get started. Let's get to know you a little bit. I'm very curious to hear about your journey, and of course later on we will be talking about the spiritual fasting and how you help people heal all sorts of things, including diabetics. So Gabriel, the floor is yours. Please share a little bit about you.
okay, well, I was born in Chicago, Illinois, in the U.S. I had TB when I was 1 year old. That's 1943. There was no cure for TB at that time. So the first thing I'm expecting is a good chance you're going to die. You know. Now that's the message because that's what people are thinking. I'm 1 year old. I don't know. Right? So obviously I didn't die. So, but there you face those issues. And at 4, I said, and no one in my family was a doctor. I said I want to be a doctor. Okay, I don't know where that's coming from. That's what my parents said, but fine, good. Okay. And then different things happened. Different members of my family died, and by the time I was 33, everyone in my family had gone to the other side. And I went to a place called Amherst College. It was a #1 school at that time, small school. Played sports, played football, and played tennis. Was captain of an undefeated football team. So there's some leadership stuff there. And really had a good time. Then I went to Columbia Medical School in New York City. I lived in central Harlem. I would ride my bicycle back and forth between where I lived and medical school. But I began doing a lot of work with school health. And we developed a program to improve the school health. And we were in about half the schools by the time I moved on to what I did my medical internship in San Francisco. And then I trained as a psychiatrist. I found that was really interesting, and family therapist, which I really enjoyed. Went to Boston Family Institute. And after that, as I went into my practice, I realized there's something wrong here. What was missing is when people were unhealthy, their minds weren't working right. It's a simple thing, but it's like, who in the 60s is thinking psychosomatic medicine? It's really a fairly new field at the level that we're talking about. And we're talking about orthomolecular psychiatry. What does that mean? Well, we have all these neurotransmitters, but if they're out of balance, people's minds aren't working right, the bodies aren't working right. So I began to explore that whole area, which again was relatively new. And so I saw I had to get people physically healthy so I could actually, a lot of things cleared up. So I studied things like create a cure for hypoglycemia, a very high rate of treating that. There's a cure for diabetes. I have that book somewhere. There's a cure for diabetes. And I began also working with different ethnic groups. I work with people from all different places. But I did a lot of work with Native Americans. Their diabetes rate is 90%. 90%.
90% diabetes.
That's high. Okay.
Wow.
And so we did a lot of work that way. And in that process, I also became a Native American sun dancer, where you dance 4 days without food and water in the sun. You just have a ceremonial skirt and nothing on top. And by this time, I was in a vegan and also live foods. And I noticed this remarkable thing. Other people with much darker skin got sunburned because you're in the hot sun, you're 24 hours a day. I didn't get sunburned. It's like, what? Why am I not getting sunburned? So what I realized, and there's some research done in Germany, that if you are having live food, you became like the plant. You actually become transmuting the sunlight into energy. So instead of getting sunburned, I'm filled with lots of energy. And at the fourth year of Sundance, I was what we call an eagle dancer. I was hooked to the tree for fully 4 days, never left the circle. And really, there was the only one out of 80 people to do it. I was also the oldest one by 30 to 40 years. Most people, there's one other guy who's 23. I'm already 60 at this time doing it. It's like, what's going on? And I began to see, the live food, the whole lifestyle was making a big, big difference. And as the Native Americans saw that I was like the only one able to do the tradition, the post feast had more and more vegetarian food each year. Vegetarian food. It's very funny, but because they respect results, not top. So that evolved for me, and I've also worked in 5 different countries in Africa, and I brought in organic, veganic, live food farms where people are doing these things, and fresh water. People, they were drinking soft drinks. Why are you drinking soft drinks? Well, we can't get good water. Fine. So we began raising money we have over 50 wells that we've done, which is, it's a big deal. A well's a big deal in the African countries I was working. So it just kind of evolved that when I'm thinking holistic medicine, it's like organic, veganic food, feeding the kids. So that kind of changed a few things for me. It gave me a broader thing. But in my general practice, it became very clear, as I said, that people really had to rebalance their neurotransmitters. And one of the things I saw, because I did my first fasting in 1983, where I did a 40-day fast. Okay. And it was fun. It was easy. And but then I began introducing fasting in 1988 for groups of people. And what I saw diabetes type 2 diabetes getting cleared up. I saw people's minds getting better. I saw people being filled with a lot more energy, vitality, and their hearts opening up. And it was like, wow, we have just reached a new paradigm in helping people expand their quality of health, their quality of thinking, and also their spiritual awareness. Fasting quiets the mind. When your mind's quiet, you're more open to spiritual awareness. Now, in 1973, I became more involved in more overtly spiritual work. I done work with the kind of a scene kind of way of thinking. The scenes were actually a Jewish group who broke away from the temple and started their own kind of communities, like in Qumran. People have heard of that. Okay. But I also began doing work in the yogic world, and I lived in India on and off for 7 years. meditating 6 hours a day, and kind of making some breakthroughs, going in what I would call into the nothing. Uh, we also had dancing there. We had these dancing saptos would be 24 hours you go, which I obviously enjoyed. Okay, so and so all these things began to integrate. So I was on and off in India for, as I say, for 7 years. Learned a great deal internally. You're meditating 6 hours a day, chanting 4.5 hours a day. It changes you. It's just the way it is.
Mm.
I was also the doctor for a few thousand people, so I kind of learned other pieces of the story. Um, And then I began integrating and working with a friend of mine, another doctor, Dr. Lee Sinella. He wrote a book called Kundalini Transcendence or Psychosis. So I began working with anybody with any imbalances with Kundalini. And part of the tradition in India is the awakening of the Kundalini and how that unfolds and changes, upgrades all your chakras, and opens the whole consciousness. So by my direct experience, which I could go into detail, but it's a lot of detail, it's a few books, then I could understand and help other people as well. So I worked with Swami Muktananda, and he assigned everybody to me. I mean, he knew. I didn't know, but he knew that was, was obviously part of my destiny to be doing that work. Because that certainly wasn't in my mind. I just came there to meditate, did whatever. So that unfolded, and then different levels, as I say, working in Africa, working with Native Americans, working with a whole variety of people, we began to develop centers, not only there, but when I lived, we created a community called the Tree of Life Rejuvenation Center on the border of Mexico and in Arizona, walking distance from the border. And people came from 128 different nations. And I really began to understand, people's differences, but also how people are so much alike.
Mm.
Once you get past a little of the cultural stuff. And so I did a lot of work healing, and that's where I learned about healing diet. We did our research in diabetes and learned how to heal diabetes naturally. Literally, diabetes is considered unhealable, right? So in 3 weeks, 61% of the people in our program were completely free of diabetes, healed. That's people off insulin. People on insulin, 96% in 3 weeks was off insulin, which is impossible, right?
Mm.
And according to traditional medical, and 24% were healed of their diabetes. A few weeks later, down the line, the much higher percentage of people being healed. And then the totally surprising effect, there's a few people got in the program were type 1 diabetics. I don't know how they got in, because it was only for type 2, but they got in. And 20% of those healed. And it's like, what? We're healing type 1 diabetics? How is that possible? I have a whole explanation in my book, because I had to figure out, here's the facts. Now let's see why that's happening.
Yeah.
And so 20% of type 1. I mean, in a few weeks, actually, he's 16 now, but we had a 5-year-old type 1 diabetic and his mother, and he's healed of his diabetes after a year, and has stayed free of diabetes for the last 10 years. And so it's easy. That's the thing. It's amazing. It's so easy. Okay, you had a question.
Well, I have lots of questions actually, because I've seen it myself in the work that I do, that when we use energy healing and we clear things that the doctor says are incurable and stuff like that, and then you say, well, why is there such a difference between the people who can do it and actually healing themselves with our guidance, let's say, and the people that never heard of these things, and it feels like everyone should be have access to this information that actually, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You just need to find who is already doing it, and of course, you are already doing it. You are already guiding people to healing, and you have, the proof to show everyone. So I'm really curious, when people are coming to you, is it now, are you mostly working in the groups, like you said, with the spiritual fasting, or is it, are you also working with one-on-one? Or, and also, I guess my next question is already, do you feel that sometimes this group, this togetherness is also helping people to heal faster?
All of the above.
Oh, fair enough.
So let me explain. Uh, there is a difference. People take a fast. Really, within a week, their diabetes, if it's type 2, is usually gone, and they've reset that. Also, high blood pressure. And what's going on is you're genetically upgrading. So, high blood pressure, diabetes is a genetic downgrade, and you're literally upgrading. It literally happens. It's just
Mhm.
observation. The way I say that is because they stay that way. They stay on the diet and that way of life. It's reset. If you go back to the old junk food ways of eating, you'll reset it back the other way. So people have options and choices, but a lot of people choose, well, I feel so good. My life has now been lengthened by maybe 20 years. Why should I consider not being that way? So now, when I work with individuals, I call it whole person healing. For I spend about 2.5 hours with them, and I really go into detail to understand their life, understand their issues. Um, I've developed certain kind of psychodynamic process I call 0 point, where I teach people how they can clear their own thought forms that are blocking them. And so that's a whole deeper kind of exploration. The fasting is kind of more mass, and we meet in groups and people do that. But the spiritual fasting isn't about diabetes, it's about waking up spiritually. So we're meditating twice a day. My wife is teaching them the Kali Ritra Yoga, uh, and there's a lot of group sharing. So there's a general upgrade of consciousness.
Mhm.
Now, one of the other things that happens, which is common in a whole lot of traditions, is what we call Shaktipat. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but it's the awakening of the Kundalini energy. So after the end of my 7 years with Bhaktivedanta, he empowered me to awaken the Kundalini by look, by touch, by breath. So people get Shaktipat every day at the spiritual fast because it's in person to awaken that. We have two fasts a year because it's a big production. And so they get Shaktipat every single day. So a very high percentage of the people have that Kundalini, which is the cosmic spiritual energy, which is stored at the base of our spine, in potential state, gets awakened in about 80% of the people. So that's kind of another piece that goes on. This is way beyond diabetes. That diabetes is a side piece of the big picture. The big picture is awakening consciousness.
Yeah.
And when you have awakened consciousness, then you're more open to all kinds of healing as well. Go ahead.
I just find it fascinating, actually, and I'm curious, because basically what you're saying is that, what I understand that you're saying is that a lot of the conditions or illnesses that, or yeah, let's say ailments and stuff that people are suffering from is basically because they're kind of blocked, and maybe what I call out of alignment. And then what you do is you help them, not only of course with the physical thing of the fasting and the juicing and all of that, but it's actually also how to think differently, how to release these blockages, how to get more in touch with themselves, and then when you kind of put all of these things together with some other ones, what happens is it's kind of I guess a miracle is kind of the word that comes to mind, and of course, and it allows them to now move on to that next stage of openness and connectiveness and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. You're a good summary. I don't consider it a miracle. I just consider it a natural consequence of getting in alignment.
Yeah,
Okay. So,
exactly. Yeah, the word miracle is not in the wow, it couldn't have happened, but it's in the wow, I never seen that it could happen. It's that change of
right.
yeah. Um, but you speaking a little bit about the things that you do to help people. So I want to understand more about how what it is that they're taking away from this. How do they like you said, right? The change of thinking habits and how to do this for yourself. How what is it that you help them do? Because I guess from my work with people, I know how challenging it can be for them to come out of habits and patterns that they've had for such a long time.
So the key is loving yourself enough to want to heal yourself.
Hmm.
Loving yourself enough to want to heal yourself. That's the shift that has to happen. Once you're in that place that you love yourself enough to want to heal yourself, you're willing to do what you need to do.
And
So,
how do you find this love? Because of course, a lot of people have no self love.
correct. For example, when you're fasting, because we emphasize meditating, and there's a sense of well-being, and you get in touch with what I call the inner self. That's a pretty common term. That's why I use it. And that inner self is filled with light and love and that spiritual dance we're talking about. When you begin to access that, it changes your opinion about yourself because you realize, oh, that's who I am. I'm that light and love of that, of the oneness of the universe, of the divine. And when you begin to feel that, then your self opinion changes. So I don't talk to people about self esteem in that way. Yes, we'll do some 0 point, we'll do this and that. And I have a whole course on that. It's a 3-day course.
Hmm.
But I just focus on experiencing the truth of who you are.
And then
And
that's what people can draw from when they go home and say, well, what was it that I what was it that I liked myself?
yeah,
And yeah,
loving yourself enough to heal yourself is very strong motivation to do the work that each individual needs to do in their own particular way.
yeah. Yeah, and I like what you said, but I would like to ask a little bit more about that. Just to go back to what you said earlier about the groups that you said um, in the border between Mexico and Arizona, and saying that all these different people came, and that helped you to see how we're basically all the same. And I'm curious a little bit about this mindset. What makes people ill, according to you?
Well, it's a little complicated.
Yeah, I imagine.
I would call karma, stuff from past life, stuff you've done early in your life, and the illnesses are like clearing that. Excuse me, giving you the opportunity to clear it.
Right.
So it's like change. You have to make a changing from within, kind of who you are. You know, changing the way you're doing things. It's like you identify where you missed the point, then you commit to changing that, and you then check a way of life that allows that change to happen.
Is
Yeah,
it, but is it always karma? Is it always from past life?
no, 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 no. I
No.
mean, it is in a certain way. I mean, we create what we see or think, but we have past life karmas, and then it's karma when you eat junk food, you're more likely to get diabetes. That's karma also, but that's what I call instant karma.
Right.
But I don't want to confuse it. I just want to say you have past life things, things you've done earlier in life. Then we call it in the biblical thing measure for measure. You know, they talk about it specifically. Measure for measure means karma.
Hmm.
But if you're eating junk food, eating a lot of sugar, like people are taught to do, you know, by the commercial enterprises,
Yeah.
it gives you a bad result. Now, that's not necessarily karma in a strict sense. It's like, okay, you're misinformed, you're miseducated. Yes, it's karma, but really, you learn to kind of listen to the right people. You learn to make some changes, and so you got misinformation. They did, you know. I don't know how this goes in England, but vaccinations. Okay, we know the data is there. We can't dispute it that people who got vaccinated have 40% more rate of mortality. That's fact. It's indisputable. We know that people who got vaccinated have more nervous system problems, more mental problems, more anxiety, more depression. Again, that's a fact. 20 to 40% more. So we think it's well, you know, you should get a vaccination, do this, is all good. But in reality, you are misinformed. Now, that's different than past life things or this, you know. So we have a lot of misinformation in the world, and so what's our response? Well, we have to be a lot more selective who we listen to. We actually have to think about what we're doing and learn not necessarily to trust the traditional authorities because they're not giving us the right information. I don't want to go into their motivations. There's a variety of motivations, but it's
Yeah.
still misinformation.
I
So all these things are part of the story, you know, and also say the cultural lifestyles, big big issue. It's not quite the same as past life things. So all those things play a role.
Yeah. No, and I totally support that. Um, but what keeps people stuck in illness?
Uh, they're thoughtful. They believe in the system. They believe in what the authorities told. They believe what they were told in school. So people have this belief in authority, and it's good if it's a good authority. But unfortunately, most of the medical authority isn't quite so good. And we see that clearly in England, clearly in the United States. You know, in the United States now, this guy, Fauci, who was kind of head of the NIH programs with this, he's in big trouble. There's lots of, the government is kind of going to go after him for basically gross malpractice. Now, I'm just simplifying it. But so we did have people giving wrong information. Now, I have a lot of interest in India, and we have Bill Gates, giving vaccinations to people in India, and then suddenly there's high rates of death and nervous system problems and so forth. This is not an accident.
I
You see what I'm
actually
saying?
I would like to stay away from the topic of vaccination because it is so
Yeah.
it's yeah. Let's just park that for a second if that's okay with you. I really want to go back to
Talk about it anymore. But I can't say that people were misinformed, and I think that's the problem.
I think I agree that misinformation is a big thing. Of course, we have the white coat syndrome, which is something that I keep coming across every time I have conversations with people because people believe the doctors even though the doctors don't know and haven't got the experience that I had someone with fibromyalgia. Of course, doctor said it's incurable, but she has no fibromyalgia after 5 sessions. How can that be? Well, I don't know, but the doctors also don't know, and so they say,
But I do know because I hear it all the time. And when you detox, the fibromyalgia often goes away unless there's a strong mental component. It's a
right,
really easy thing to heal.
right,
Just fasting, I've seen people heal from fibromyalgia because the toxins get out of the muscle system.
And let's talk about the fasting now for a little bit. So fasting is not just it's not eating, right? What is in the fasting? What
Well,
does that entail?
so spiritual fasting has an intent to grow spiritually as well as to fully detox physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually versus just detoxing physically. We use diluted green juices. We did fruit juices before, but that made people's blood sugars get out of balance. So that didn't work so well. So, we learned by experience. So now it's just diluted green juices. And that, uh, after by day 10, by 10 hours to 2 days, the metabolism moves away from glucose metabolism to fat metabolism, ketones.
Hmm.
So you create a state of ketosis, which is really good for the brain, really good for the heart, and people get healthier because the toxins are taken out of the system. Everything works, literally works better. Uh, that's part of it. But again, we're meditating twice a day. People are getting what we call a Hebrew honey ha or shakti pat, the awakening of that. We're meditating, we're doing yoga, we're having group sessions talking about their life and changing. So there's a lot of support around loving yourself enough to heal yourself, which is the commitment to change your pattern.
But when you come back home into your old lifestyle, and how, because I mean I had that I saw this movie. I think his name was Joe Cross. He had a movie about fat, sick, and nearly dead, or something like that. And he said that he remembered that when he was a child, if he would fall off his bike, his body would know how to heal himself. And then he said, I am so sick at this point. Let me try and go back into nature and simplicity, and I'll just do this juicing. And he did 60 days juicing, where he would have 3 or 4 juices a day, for 60 days. And yes, by the end of the 60 days, his skin was incredible. He lost a lot of weight and all of that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try this because I need a reset in my way of dealing with food and stuff like that. So I did a 30-day juice, which wasn't so easy at the beginning, but it was no problem at the end. But the problem was that when I came off the juice, then I had no idea what to do, how to continue, how to get better. So, and that for me, of course, I was by myself and I didn't have your guidance and all of that, but I didn't know how to, go back to how I was, but to get better. But I didn't have that in so very quickly.
I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
So we do a coming off the fast kind of day to go over a lot of issues that you just brought up.
Hmm.
How do you maintain your habits that really are good for you? Okay. Then I have weekly programs. People can tune in. I have a spiritual uh, questions to answer and also spiritual nutrition questions to answer. So people can get supportive on a weekly basis. So that's how I do that because exactly what you brought up is a real problem. I
Yeah,
also try to get people to make friends with each other at the fast so they can support each other.
that is wonderful.
Getting positive group support from your friends, and then you have hours to tune in and have a good follow up that way. So follow up is important. It really is, and it's pretty simple. If people have to choose. You can't make people do the follow up, but you can create settings that support a really good post fast situation. And we do that with at least a full day of discussion of how you proceed to keep the goodness of health that you got, and it ensure is 7 days. Our fasts are mostly just 7 days.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds very. I would love to talk a little bit more about these retreats, and I know that you have one coming up because it sounds like you really do look at the holistic, side of things, and not only the
Right.
physical, but also the mental, emotional, and spiritual. And it sounds like the experience that people get from that is priceless. really.
It is priceless because people make major life changes. That's why I call it spiritual fasting, because it's an intent to heal yourself on every level, to
Yeah,
really change your paradigm of how you're living.
yeah, yeah. It sounds remarkable. So what when is that next retreat?
The next retreat is June 1st in the Dominican Republic. We want a pretty kind of a nice tropical climate for doing this. And we've had fast all over the world. Uh, and so, but that's where we look at as a pretty simple place. And uh, people could just go to Dr. Cousins Spiritual Fast.co. It's pretty simple. And look it up, or just go to drcousins.com and they can refer to the fast, or I have a website, treeoflife.mn.co. So there's 3 places they can go, but there's a whole website for the fast. People can sign up, and it's life changing. I'm sorry, it can be life changing. I recommend people fast twice a year.
Hmm.
I did research. I'm kind of I am a researcher as well, and uh, what I did is I saw that people. I tested people, and on the average, I had 70 people. I did. People had about 26 toxins in their system, and after a week fast, that was down to about 11 toxins. And after 2 weeks of fasting, 0.
Hmm.
But over 6 months, breathing the air, you got food, we're constantly being exposed. So the pattern that I've worked out really is a 7-week fast twice a year really kind of maintains no minimal toxins or no toxins in the system. That's how I've kind of worked that out. So I encourage people that this okay, this is a nice experience, but no, this is a way of life.
Hmm.
So what I'm interested in promoting with the fasting, but in general, is a way of life that leads you to good optimal health and to spiritual awakening. So it's the emphasis is a way of life, not one technique.
Yeah, yeah. And so the retreat itself, the first retreat that is coming up now is it 7 days? Did I read that correctly?
The 7-day fast with a day follow up.
Right.
Like it's really 8 days because we want that day of discussion and coming off the fast. So we don't like to talk about coming off the fast while you're fasting. That's too
Yeah.
technical.
Yeah. No, I saw that in your information that you have a breakfast after the on the
And
eighth day.
lunch, but a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Really focus on okay, you have questions, you have concerns, you're going home into a world that doesn't know what you're talking about. What are you going to do? How are you going to handle it?
Yeah.
So we really incorporate that part of it because that's a very human issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So I was just thinking maybe it would be quite nice if you shared some example of some healing that people have reported, and I imagine that it's not necessarily in 7 days, right? It might be a little bit after the 7 days of fasting. But what
So
can,
one of the more dramatic ones is a lady who was 93 years old because this is at any age. I want to also emphasize any age.
Mhm.
So Ruth came. She was on 13 medications. She had a variety of health problems. Arthritis, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, just to name a few. So after her week of fasting, we went a little bit longer. She was off all her medications. She no longer had diabetes. She no longer had high blood pressure. Now, so this is a 93-year-old lady, okay?
Mm.
This isn't like a 30-year-old, right? And she was great. And I saw her a year later. She's living in New York City. And she continues to be great, in that sense. So that's the kind of healing that we see. Uh, it can be pretty dramatic. Think about 13, medications and all these problems.
Yeah.
So we see pretty, I'm going to say, chronic disease, complicated situations. And she's a good example of that. People are on multiple medications. During the fast, we often get people off a lot of these and they never need to go back on them. I have all kinds of people come with high blood pressure, same thing. A week into the fast, their blood pressure goes to normal, genetically resets. And if they kind of keep the lifestyle, it's always, you got to keep the lifestyle. That's
Right.
important. Then they don't keep recurring.
What is the difference? I mean, other than of course everything else that you add on top with the meditation and the conversations and the group, the bonding that helps as well. So what is the difference there with the water fasting that people have mentioned in various situations?
Well, water fasting is very powerful. I've done a 21-day water fast. It's powerful. What's the downside? When people do water fast, they much have a higher rate of kind of healing crises. Toxins are coming out too quickly. Heart rates get thrown off, and I just found that I could get the same results in a safer way than water fasting. But water fasting is powerful, does work. I've done that, but there's just more things that can go wrong. And when you're doing kind of groups of people and you're trying to get people from all different ways of life, the green juice, we dilute it in half, but it's just a safer, easier thing for people, and they get safer but equal results.
Yeah.
That's been my experience.
Yeah. But I can imagine that the whole combination, the whole package is very uplifting, very rewarding. It sounds really incredible to be supported in this way. That you not only doing the physical fasting, but you also have, like you said, the spiritual element, the emotional, the mental. It must be really incredible to be in the retreats.
And we're having a good time.
And you're having a good time. I'm sure there's lots of dancing.
And my chronological age is 82. Okay, well, today I did 1,600 push-ups all at one time, sit-ups, this, that, the other thing, all kinds of, The point is, they have a few models of people being really healthy, at this point, into the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can see where this can go.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not talking about it, I'm living it.
Yeah, you are this.
Life is living it. So this is an important part of it, because there's like, okay, here's a guy that's living it, okay, and his wife's living it. They're good. The other thing I do stress is the importance of social connection.
Mm-hmm.
And the research shows, the research is on women, but it applies to men maybe even more so, is that women in relationship have 49% less rates of mortality. That's married, and for men it's probably higher, because men aren't quite as good by themselves as women.
Right.
So no, that's an important statement just to think about. And the diet, I also say take your time. You're starting a lifelong process. This is an important kind of concept here. Hey, let's just make it the vegan. If you can do that, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now let's move to 50% live food. Now 80%. Okay, good. Hold it. But, give yourself a year to make that transition. Don't push yourself and make yourself unhappy. So you should be having fun. If you're not having fun, it's not going to hold. Okay?
Yeah, and I think that's a very important statement for anything.
Yes.
Gabriel, all of the information, all of your social links and everything will be, within the show notes and everything, so people can find out more about you, find out more about the retreat, as you say, coming up on 1st June in the Dominican Republic. And so all of the information will be there. Tell me, before we say goodbye for today, is there anything else or anything that you would like more specifically to leave people with before, for this conversation today?
Yeah. There's one other message that's really important. Okay. and that is that you could get better with age. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm 40, it's like that's it, I'm going downhill. Oh, I'm 60, I'm going downhill, right?
Mm.
So the message is, okay, I'm 80 and I'm going uphill. You can get better, healthier, more flexible, clearer mind with age, but you have to do the work. You have to work a little bit. But it's contrary to the general assumption is with age, well, you may get wiser, but you don't get healthier. It's just downhill.
Yeah.
And so that's an important message. There was a guy named Paul Bragg. You may have heard of him or may not, but Paul Bragg was one of the initial kind of live fooders. And, at 95, he got hit in the head with a surfboard, drowned. But here he is out swimming somewhere. He didn't say it the way I just said it. But the assumption that I'm countering is we can get better with age, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. We can get wiser, we can get healthier, we can get stronger. That's a big point because most people think you lose your muscle strength with age. Not true.
Not true.
Okay. So that is a very important message. It's a very optimistic message, but it's real.
I think what I'm getting from you is that when we have, I don't know, the insight or the courage to start questioning things and not taking the authority, for example, as the body that knows everything, when you have the courage to start looking inside of you and release all of these borders that we put up for ourselves from past life conditionings, this life, all of these things,
Limitations, I call them.
limitation, absolutely, then actually you really do, you connect with your better version, right? And physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And then when you add to that your guidance and the support, the daily, the weekly support, however often the support is, it really helps you to keep accountable, to keep going on that journey. And then of course you see all of these things for yourself, and away you go. You're already a believer. And it sounds so powerful, and I'm very excited for everything that you shared with us today. And I hope that everyone listening will go ahead and look you up and find more details about this retreat and the group situation that you put together.
But also, I see people individually from all over the world because we have internet now. Like
Yeah, the internet.
we're in different countries. We have internet, so we can do this work all over. COVID opened up that whole avenue.
Yeah,
where you can see people from all over the world. So I do work with people still. I like it. It's fun. I enjoy it.
yeah, it's fun. Wonderful. So thank you very much, Gabriel, for being here with us today. I loved our conversation. I love what you bring to the world. All of your information will be in the show notes so everyone can share and view it and get in touch. And of course, a note for anyone watching or listening, please do share this with anyone you think might be interested, because we are here to spread the word and the message that healing naturally is possible. It's been done before. It will be continuing to be done. Just people need to hear about it. Thank
Okay,
you so much.
I want to bless you and thank you for your good work. But I also want to bless all the listeners that your life may be enhanced in all ways. Peace be with you.
Wonderful.